There's a couple of roomier cushions up front if anybody wants to move on.
That's how it always is. Everybody goes and
Yeah. Oh, that's crap.
How was the retreat?
I didn't go on this one. I had too much, I had business conflicts, I couldn't go, so he went.
Did Shane say anything about how the retreat?
About what?
How the retreat?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it was good. It was, they got some pretty cool.
Wonderful. Awesome.
That's right, you were there, yeah.
Was there snow? No? That really quiets things down.
Did you hike? You did? Yeah, right, yeah. You saw the elk? I didn't get to see any elk. Yeah,
Well, I've been there.
nice. I'm sorry I missed the snow, but I had just so much. I would have been cold though. I would have been a real wimp, totally. Oh, God. I was freezing in Gilbert. I mean, it was like ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I missed everybody too. I meditated a couple of times when I knew it was the time that you guys were. Yeah. I connected with you all. So that was something. The first one I missed, but
It was just announced today, I go to a grieving group, and there's a grief bereavement 3-day thing for children, 6 to 18, and their parents. And that's at the Merit Center.
oh really?
In February.
Oh wow. Huh.
So she's staying pretty booked.
Yeah, I know she was talking about doing stuff for grieving.
Yeah.
She was talking about that.
That's awesome.
That's good. Yeah, she's got that great space there. She should definitely be using it, letting more people help other people. She's got that space. Didn't figure it out?
well, we'll have to. I don't want to leave everybody waiting, but we'll get to the bottom of it later. There's a chance that it might be streaming, but it's not playing back. I don't actually
It says
working.
waiting. That black dialogue box is waiting. So,
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. We will, there's only 3 watching now, so we lost one, looks like. One of the reasons that we moved here from the temple is for, live streaming. When I say the temple, does everybody know what I'm talking about? Show of hands? Okay, so, okay. All right. Just trying to see who, well, most of you look familiar to me, so. Anyway, thank you for coming, and we'll be, running the Wednesday night in this location, because once we get the streaming going, then people can join us all over. And you too, I mean, anybody can. If we're in this location and you can't make it for some reason, you can meditate with us at home, and even ask questions, after we're done meditating and that kind of thing. So it's something that I think is really neat, that to be able to offer this for everyone. And not only us wonderful people in the Mesa area here. And then eventually, I think on the 31st it starts, we'll also be running a Thursday night meditation over at the temple. That's why I wanted to make sure that everybody knew what I was talking about when I said temple. But I'll fill you in more on that as it comes up. The temperature okay in here for everybody? Seem okay? All right, great. I usually, kind of put out a kind of an invitation for people to something to look at when they meditate, and we'll be doing our kind of our regular schedule here, which means like a 35-40-minute meditation, and I'll kind of set things up, and then I'll guide us through a part of it, And then afterwards, we'll just kind of share, see if there's any questions or whatever. But one thing that is a part of Buddhism that a lot of people don't think about, and it's a very simple part of it, and that is the fact that the Buddha, he was a seeker for most of his life until, well, for a large portion of his life until he became enlightened. He had a couple of teachers. He left his home, first of all, and in search of the truth. He was a seeker. He was looking for the truth, and he spent years in the forest and in austerity. As a renunciant, kind of starving himself and doing these practices that some of the gurus and the yogis were doing in the forest. And he had a couple of teachers. They taught him concentration, how to get into these deeper states of concentration. And he was very good at it. He was a very good student. And he actually used those teachings to wake up, to become enlightened. And so he had this very keen concentration that he developed in meditation. Then he used that to really penetrate and look at his own mind and body. And as a consequence, insight arose. And the practice that we normally do in here, as a group like this, is insight meditation, or what is called vipassana. And it came out of Buddha's teachings and what worked for him. But all this time, he was a seeker. He was looking, and as soon as he woke up, as soon as he became enlightened, the seeking stopped. He stopped looking. And when I look back, and I'm sure a lot of you, when you look back on your experiences, you can tell that, or you can see that you were searching, and probably still are searching, to a certain degree. I was a huge seeker, Years ago, I saw a movie where there was some kind of like a Thor figure or something. It was kind of a medieval kind of movie, a lot of swords and things like that, And I don't remember the movie. It wasn't the movie I went to see, but it was a preview. And in this preview, they said that so-and-so, I don't remember his name, like so-and-so is a lover, and they showed him a scene with his woman, And so-and-so is a father, showed him with the kids, and so-and-so is a warrior, fighting these people. And the one I remember the most of all, it said so-and-so is a seeker, and it showed, it zoomed in on him on top of this mountain, and he had his sword up in the air, and I thought, that's what I want to be. I want to be a seeker, yeah. And I was a pretty good seeker. I went to, just to learn more about spiritual practices and things. I went to China a couple of times and Korea. It's okay, they'll find a place. And went to Japan a bunch of times, Thailand several dozen times at least, probably much more than that. Spent a lot of time in Thailand. And, just looking and seeking and trying to find the truth. Trying to find guidance, trying to find a teacher. And I have to say, my personal story is that I was very lucky with teachers. I found some wonderful teachers, and some of them in the most obscure places, like, in the northern part of Thailand, ran into an incredible teacher that, which isn't unusual in Thailand, but this guy could speak fluent English. He was very well schooled, and he was very much awake, and so that was like a gift, It's like, kind of running into somebody like that. It's like, who are you? And then, of course, he said the same thing, like, who are you? What are you doing here? That kind of thing. And so many of these places that I went to, I was the only Westerner, and I was seeking. I was looking, and the reason I tell this story is that there's a number of people. Gangaji, Muji, some of these teachers that if you don't know who they are, you can find lots of information on them on YouTube, for example. And they woke up under the guidance of a teacher that just basically told them to stop, to stop seeking, to stop looking. And it's as if, and it's harder said than done. We're very interested in spiritual practices and spirituality and the deeper understandings of the teachings. And usually meditators are avid readers, almost book junkies, And so to actually stop seeking is easier said than done. But it's as if, as long as we're looking, as long as we're seeking, we're not settling down. We can't settle down. And the analogy of a glass of water, with mud in it, and you shake it up and you can't see through it. You set it down and let it sit there for a while. And after a while, it becomes crystal clear. As long as you just let it sit still. Once you pick it up, it gets stirred up again, just like the mind. It's a really wonderful analogy. Our minds get all stirred up, and we have to have it settle down again. But one of the things that we can think in terms of is once we understand some of the teachings of the Buddha or any of the great teachers, we have a better chance of settling down. Really stopping the looking and the seeking and the searching. And that searching is very much like when we lose our car keys in the morning and we're trying to get to work. It's like, where's my keys? I saw them here. We can't even think straight. We're looking here and looking here and looking here, and finally we realize that they're in the ignition of the car or something like that. And so we know what seeking and searching can be like, kind of hectic. And it's not that hectic when we think of it in terms of spirituality, but we're still not settling down really 100%. And so the invitation tonight is to allow that to happen just for a moment, if nothing else. Allow us to kind of just really settle into the practice. And, this is for some of us, this is the newer, maybe the first meditation of the year, really, for some of us. And if we think in terms of, if we are kind and gentle and compassionate to ourselves in our practice, and just let it happen, almost like let the meditation do its work for us. All we have to do is show up. We have to be there, and it'll work. It'll work for us. We just have to relax into it. That means relaxing the body, relaxing the mind. The practice that we do here of Vipassana or insight. We have these things come up and we look at them, we shine that light of awareness on them, take a brief look, and then we come back to the breath. Pretty easy practice. And, sometimes we don't trust the easiness of things. Like if something is so easy, like, gotta be a way to make it harder or make it work faster or go deeper or something like that. And there are ways to go deeper into meditation, like in the levels of concentration, but we can't will it there. We have to let go. We have to be like this, not like this. And we just kind of slide into it, and how wonderful, our meditation practice can be when we really enjoy it and let go and have compassion and loving kindness for ourselves, So the invitation tonight is to stop seeking for a moment. At least for this duration of our meditation practice, and see what happens. Everybody understand what I mean by that? Okay. So we better get going here with our meditation, otherwise it's going to be cut short and you'll feel like you got robbed coming all the way here. So please make yourself comfortable. There's a few more cushions laying around. There's even a nice kneeling bench there that somebody donated. If anybody if anybody comes late through the door there, Jeff, maybe, maybe you can just have it direct up to the front, because I feel like a flight attendant. There's a cushion here and a cushion here, be able to, I don't know if there's any, is there, yeah, there's one there too, yeah, okay. How many people do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, thank you very much. This is a great turnout for this first evening here. And if your phones aren't on Do Not Disturb or off or something, if you have them here, please consider that. And please close the eyes. We just came out of a retreat over the weekend, annual New Year's Eve retreat, and there were some meditators that like to keep their eyes open because they got drowsy when their eyes were closed. And of course, that's fine. If we want to keep our eyes, sometimes we call it half open or half shut, one way or the other. And we can do this by just looking maybe 2 or 3 feet in front of us. Find a spot on the floor or even on the cushion or the back of the person in front of you. Just kind of relax the eyes. But there is an advantage of having the eyes closed, and that is that we get an opportunity to see the mind signs if they shine up for us, different shapes or lights that we can actually use as our meditation object. Often called nimiters, different names, but they often look like a light or a lit cigarette in the distance. And if we don't use that kind of sign, that mind sign, we can, mind object, we can just bring our attention to the breath. And when we bring our attention to the breath, we're bringing our attention to the body. The breath is the body. It's a function of the body. It's the body doing its work, one of its duties. When we bring our attention to the body, we again are watching what arises and falls away from us. Into our awareness, we might notice a sensation in the body, or even a pain in the body, and then it changes. It can change flavor or sensation, and it might even just simply pass away completely, like it typically does if we ignore it. And so we just pay attention to it for a short duration. We come back to the breath. The breath is our tool that we're using to come back to this almost sacred presence, this place where we're not concerned about the past or the future. And it's in this presence that we can fully rest. It's part of the stopping of these the seeking and the searching that we do is to rest in this presence. It's very much like having to give ourselves permission to do that and to trust it most of all. So when we come into this presence, even if it's for a second, just a moment, we're really communing with ourselves. Not the ego or not the part of ourselves that has a story behind it, but the true self, like the true nature, or what is often called a Buddha nature, the part of us that is really awake. But we do have to trust that. And the best way to do that is keep bringing our attention back to the static object, or almost static, and that's the breath. Where do we feel the breath the most in the body? For most of us, it's the tip of the nose, around the nostrils, or something like this. And we get a chance to just rest there. Again, sensations of the body may arise. We might notice that. We might notice visualizations across the screen of the mind. All sorts of movements of figures and colors in some cases. Some people visualize in near darkness, where they just kind of sensualize what is happening in their field of awareness. But when we look at it, we see that it's constantly moving, when we get a feel for it. And so all this is happening. We have pleasurable and unpleasurable feelings that come up. We can hear something and there's a feeling associated with it, pleasant or unpleasant, such as a noise or might be a smell or taste that is pleasant or unpleasant. Again, a sensation in the body that is noticed as unpleasant or pleasant. If these things are persistent, in which they are, there's always a feeling associated with every sense organ that we have: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and even thinking. The sixth sense. So we notice these feelings. We notice the sensations in the body, and we also notice the states that can be a result of all this. The desire for things to be different, the fear, the anger, the restlessness, some worry perhaps, whenever we're associating with the past or future. And we might have memories that are very pleasant, these pleasant memories that can cause feelings of compassion and love. And we might even have the state of concentration, which is also a very important part of our meditation. And just like the feelings, there's always a state present until we go very deep into concentration. And so we have sensations in the body, and which are feelings. We have mind states, and we also want to be aware of the objects, the mind objects that arise for us. And these are often seen as insight. The insight are those teachings that the Buddha used, and the discoveries that he had and made in his meditation himself. And so we can experience insight in our meditation, whether it seems as one of these aha moments, but a little bit deeper, a little bit more pronounced. profound. And to understand insight is to acknowledge it. It's information that comes to us that we haven't heard before or experienced before, something brand new. A new thought as opposed to an old thought. And so we close our eyes and we sit with the body comfortable as possible. Still, we provide a room that's fairly quiet. Sit with like-minded people. Give ourselves permission to really let go and accept the moment as it is without desiring for anything to be different. Resting in that presence and giving ourselves permission to stop seeking for anything, stop searching for anything to be different. Just sit in the still presence. Say hi to ourselves, our true nature. Notice the rising and passing away of each experience, each sensation, each feeling, each state. Come back to the breath again and again. You can bring your hands together in front of you if you like. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. May we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. And may we have the patience, the courage, and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or any difficulties that we might face in life. Thank you. Thank you all. That's a good idea, Tim. We can stand. Anybody want to stand and stretch a little bit, feel free to do so. 'Cause we'll be here for at least another 30 minutes, something like that. So just like we did in the past, we'll use these last 30 minutes or so to share or to ask questions or to see what comes up, that kind of thing. Did anybody heed the invitation? Or hopefully everybody did, but the invitation of to stop seeking for a while, to stop looking and just kind of let it happen on its own. It's if that's a new concept for you, we kind of have to remind ourselves to do that. To just allow ourselves to let go of and to accept everything. That letting go and acceptance are really the two sides of the same coin. As far as letting go of some of the stuff that or all of the stuff really that we feel like we should let go of, and it's different for everybody. But the discursive thoughts, if we're familiar with the 5 hindrances, we should notice those. The Buddhist teaching of the negative mind states, the negativity of desire and aversion or restless ill will, towards ourselves and towards others, and restlessness and worry and doubt. And we should notice the mental and physical fatigue, that can be a part of our practice and a part of our lives, to get that energy, that positive energy. But if we don't, if we have any trouble with any of that, those are the things that primarily we should let go of. If we have any questions on what to let go of, that kind of thing. Mark?
My goal is always for me, it's trying not to think about anything. It's my whole meditation is to clear my mind and only maybe hear something from the outside.
Yeah. A lot of people. Did everybody hear that? I'm just getting used to the acoustics in here after being in the temple for 9 years, and teaching. But he said that he likes to clear his mind. And if we're resting in that presence, the mind has to be pretty clear for us to do that. But a lot of teachers call that choiceless awareness. How many people have heard of choiceless awareness before as a practice? Yeah, okay. The choiceless awareness is very much like that. It's in the words. If we are, if there is, awareness of what is happening, and if there's no choice, and we're just letting it play out, eventually that will kind of fizzle out, and then the mind will be very clear. But if we're sitting, let's say we are able to let go of the past and the future, in the area of thoughts, thinking, that kind of thing. And it's like like we're sitting in the white of the Oreo cookie, you know? Like the two black sides of the cookie are the past and the future, and we're sitting in the white, you know, the sweetness, literally. And if it becomes really easy for us, the only way that we can really rest in that is through concentration, and that's likely what you're doing. But it's not the kind of concentration where we're trying to force anything or trying to do anything. We're just resting in that concentration. So it's a little bit different than trying to concentrate and get our homework done before class tomorrow. You know, it's just resting in this concentration that the mind kind of gives up the fight, the struggle. And is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, I'm trying to, if I do start to think about something, I immediately try to bring it back to my breath and
Yeah.
try to clear.
Yeah.
That's my goal, is
Yeah.
to not think.
Yeah, thinking has its place, but
Yeah.
if we could let that thinking be set aside. And there is some argument of whether we should even be trying to stop the thoughts, because it's difficult to do that. But once we, it's like if we've ever tried to, like if we ask ourselves, what is my next thought going to be? What is my next thought? What is my next thought? And we asked that, and we were aware of that consistently, a thought wouldn't come up. You ever try that? It's a wonderful practice. It's like the cat waiting for the mouse to come out of the hole in the wall, you know, and it won't come out as long as he's watching, but as soon as he turns his head, the mouse appears. Kind of an analogy of that, but so it's really a really keen awareness, you know, to watch, you know, to see the thoughts, and as long as we're watching, there won't be much there. As long as we move away from the breath, we kind of drift off into the past or the future, and then we're off to the races. You know, we're sitting here looking like we're the best in the world, just thinking, basically. And everybody does it in meditation, but that's the kind of thing that we should, that you're talking about, as far as, you know, extinguishing that and just resting in the present moment, and not paying any attention to thoughts if they're there. So for the most part, it seems like they've completely stopped.